So welcome all of you this evening for this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation. So this week we're going to continue our review of the insight knowledges that we started 2 weeks ago. I hope you were able to at least read through some of the the information on the insight knowledges that I sent out in an attachment on the 8 insight knowledges. And so last couple of weeks we've gone through the first 4 of these insight knowledges. And the first one was the knowledge of rise and fall, or basically the knowledge of impermanence. But it's called the knowledge of rise and fall. And it's a very specific type of insight. It's a very advanced stage of insight into impermanence. And it's not the normal impermanence. You say, oh, I'm sick, I get sick, and our health comes and goes, and things change, and things like that, even growing old and sickness and death. Okay, that's what we call external impermanence, the external world. And, the climate is always changing, and people and things are always changing. But the insight knowledges that we develop in Vipassana are the knowledge of the mind in the mental process, and in seeing what we call internal impermanence. That means seeing the impermanence that lies beneath the skin, how quickly every cell of our body is constantly changing, and then observing our mental process too, and observing especially the 5 aggregates and the sixfold sense sphere, or the 6 senses, how quickly they are changing from moment to moment. Now, we've talked about this already. I discussed it in the last 2. So it's a very advanced stage of Vipassana, and it assumes that everyone, or the meditator, you won't be able to develop this kind of insight until they've at least attained what is called the momentary concentration, and where the hindrances are weakened to a great extent, so that the mind becomes very, very focused and almost like a powerful laser beam. And to see how quickly, each moment, mind moment, comes and goes, each moment of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking, and how the conditioned process of it, and especially the 5 aggregates, seeing material vibration, then the feelings, perceptions, volitional activities, and the consciousness, how they're just coming and going from moment to moment. And you see it become very clearly. It's almost like flash bulbs going off, not necessarily that dramatically, but it's and you're able to see many different sensations coming and going, even in the space of just a few seconds. You could notice many, even 50 if your mind is really focused. It'll blow your mind, actually, how many subtle things you can observe in that state of concentrated awareness, and also the subtle thoughts moving through the back of the mind. Anyway, so and then you build up the speed of that, so that then you only see the vanishing of them. There's no time. It's like seeing shooting stars. Now, I think Anne mentioned there was a meteor shower tonight. Well, if you happen to have the weather and the place to see a meteor shower, that's a kind of an example of that. What this the knowledge of vanishing, or the rising and vanishing, how quickly things dissolve. And it's like a shooting star. You look up in the sky and normally you don't even see it start, you don't even see where it came from. It's just all of a sudden you just see that streak that just vanishes like very quickly. And followed by another one and another one and another one. And so the insight that you get from this is seeing how conditioned our mind is and seeing how quickly that our mind reacts, and how if you cling to any of these moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking, if you cling to them, any particular one, then that brings in the past and the future connected with that object and triggers off your likes and dislikes and a whole chain reaction. And so, and that's the suffering. You see how the suffering that arises because of that clinging. And when the mind is flowing from moment to moment, not clinging to anything, when you develop that high speed of attention, then the mind doesn't have time to cling to anything, and you experience the liberation. You experience a very profound a lightness and a sense of well-being, even though things are rising and vanishing, because the mind is not bringing in the past or future to them. Anyway, then as I mentioned last week, we covered the third knowledge, which is called the appearance of terror, and then the appearance of danger. So these two stages, that means, now some people misrepresent that, and they think you're seeing the world as a terrible place and nothing to get attached to. No, but actually it's seeing the terror in your own ignorance, how conditioned your mind has become, and how you've allowed your mind to get deeply entangled, enmeshed in the web of karma through our not understanding this impermanence, and by allowing our mind to cling and then create karma around all the various objects, since we were a child, accumulating all these likes and dislikes, when actually the mind doesn't have to get stuck in that. And so you become, the appearance of terror is actually, being, toward your own ignorance. It's about being, seeing the danger in ignorance, and being kind of terrorized by our own mind. A lot of people are terrorized by their own mind because they get caught up in their habits, their phobias, their delusions, and there are various types of psychotic states. I mean, look at people with serious mental, psychological problems. They get terrorized by their depression, for example, or so many other types of mental disorders, and also just becoming addicted to sensual craving and so on, being caught in that. So you see that as a terror, not the object themselves, terrified at the way you've allowed our minds to become into that position, having gotten caught in that web of suffering. And then the appearance of danger. That means after that initial sort of terror is, it kind of wears off, and now you just see the danger of getting too attached to things. You see the danger in your uncontrolled thoughts and habits. And then the next insight knowledge, the fifth one, is you become dispassionate. You lose the former cravings and desires and wasting your time and a lot of things like that, you lose the interest in that, and seeing how, sensual pleasures really don't bring any fulfillment, because you understanding how when the mind is flowing from moment to moment, you experience that happiness, that piti and the sukha, because you're in a state of basically jhana at that point, vipassana jhana, and or very close to it. And so you're experiencing also piti and sukha, even while you're observing impermanence. Now, a lot of people find that hard to understand, and it's because you can only understand that, when it occurs, or you experience that in your these states of meditation and insight. So you become dispassion means losing that interest and desire or craving for the sensory world, and not losing interest in a lot of the things you might have done. And so that's a danger in the vipassana meditation when you develop these insights, because people don't want to let go. They're afraid they're going to have to give up something. They're afraid they're going to have to stop going to parties, for example, or other types of entertainments, because all of those things, indulging in ordinary sensual pleasures, actually prevents our mind from entering these deeper levels of meditation. So for that reason, you're getting more joy through the mind being more in the present moment, rather than always, what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? And planning all your things that you're going to do to entertain yourself or spend your time. So anyway, the dispassion means you gradually losing interest in doing those things, and that's why some people they kind of back off of the vipassana, because they're still they're very much attached to the world, and so it becomes a kind of a dilemma for some people. They want the taste of the meditation. They want that liberation that the meditation brings, but yet they still want to hold on to the things that will prevent them from actually being able to develop to the the higher stages and so on. And so that dispassion, it leads to the next knowledge, which is called the desire for deliverance. That means you've gotten, you had enough of all the ignorance and the negative conditioning of your mind, and you want to become, released from that. So that's called the desire for deliverance, being delivered or overcoming, destroying the overcoming all the fetters and the hindrances that are keeping the mind in its sort of limited state. And so that further then, furthers your practice in terms of, becoming more sort of detached and so on. And so again, that's why there's a danger of people who have lots of family members, and they have to do all these things, and they have to be involved in the world. And that's why a lot of them are not able to kind of sort of go beyond a certain point. But anyway, after the so that desire for deliverance is it's a very strong urge to want to reach the next levels of the the meditation, and of course the practice of the Dhamma in the Eightfold Path. And so you reflect. The next stage is called knowledge of reflection, in which you go back and you reflect and you repeat over and over again all the different things that you've learned and studied, repeating them over and over again, so it sinks deeper and deeper into the mind. And then at the end, the eighth of the insight knowledges is called the knowledge of equanimity, in which the mind, and this is equivalent to the third or the fourth jhana, because it contains that equanimity, that very powerful equanimity that's not reacting to any of the sensory stimulations coming through. So, all these stages could be gone through, in even one, meditation period, if one knows how to do it. Although you don't always have to go back to the very beginning. Once the mind gets accustomed to these knowledges and can kind of easily get into that insight, then one can get into it actually very quickly. So, and then I don't want to go on too far, because I don't want to lose some of the people, or so I want to open it up and see if there's any questions that any of you had. I hope that you were able to read, because just my explaining this is kind of limited, but if you go back and you read that attachment that I sent out a couple of weeks ago on the insight knowledges, that gives a lot more explanation. Anyway, so there's a hand, I see a yellow hand up there, Joe. So Joe, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was wondering about the insight knowledge on dispassion and becoming dispassionate toward various types of sensual craving. You had mentioned that as you gain that insight knowledge, you would naturally lose your craving for these sort of things. But also you mentioned that not being entangled in them helps you to reach these deep states of concentration. So I was wondering, sort of like, is there a balance? Do you sort of give up certain things at some point along the way to this insight knowledge, or do you sort of go about your life and enjoy the things that you enjoy until you naturally become dispassionate about them?
That practicing the vipassana meditation, or practicing it, that sort of this following this kind of meditation practice, you will see for yourself the things that block your meditation. So let's say you are going out to parties, from time to time, or you had other, habits, playing video games, or, just different things. And you can see how these things come up in your meditation and add to the hindrances of sensual desire, or just restlessness. So you become more sensitive, as you get deeper into the meditation, you become more sensitive, and you see how a lot of the things you do that don't really have any benefit from the Dharma point of view, then you'll naturally kind of give them up, you know. Like you might, give up the occasional drinking, or, maybe you're following the precepts or trying to, and maybe you still, had a drink once in a while. Maybe you decide, I'm going to give that up also, or give up smoking, or watching movies. A lot of these things that, we may not know that they're actually feeding the hindrance in our mind. So as you develop your meditation, quite oftentimes you will naturally let them go. That's an outgrowth of the meditation, is that you kind of naturally let them go. Just like, we've let go of a lot of different things as we've grown up. When you grow up from a child, you give up certain childish games, and then you become a teenager and you outgrow those, and you keep going on. So in the same way, as you develop in your meditation practice, then the mind will also, go on. In other words, let go of the things that it's blocking its ability to go deeper.
That makes sense. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. Now there is something called the tantric. Now, if you're familiar with the idea of tantra, that's a practice that sometimes is incorporated in some yogic schools, or even in some Buddhist tantric schools. They use the senses, or if you're familiar with Rajneesh or Osho, that's actually a better example. If you're familiar with Osho or Rajneesh, back in the 70s or 80s, he used to tell people the tantric method is you indulge in sensory pleasure, whether it's sex or other things, so much until you sort of OD from it, and then you give it up. And that's sort of the opposite from sort of the Theravada approach, in where you practice restraint, and you, by practicing the precepts, avoiding sensual misconduct, or even as a monastic, practicing celibacy and so on, and giving up, alcohol and other types of things. That is you're practicing the restraint. Whether the tantric method is you indulge in all those things until you become sick or almost die from them, and then hopefully you may give them up. Anyway, so yeah. Anybody else have any other questions? Let's see something maybe in the chat box. Okay, here's something from the chat box. The insight knowledges dovetail delightfully with the 12 links of dependent origination. If one practices the 12 links, it seems one also realizes the insight knowledges. Is this acceptable? Well, the 12 links of dependent origination are, it's more the Eightfold Path, that they dovetail with the Eightfold Path rather than the 12 links of transcendental or dependent origination. But yes, you are overcoming craving and grasping by practicing the meditation, and by developing, as we've already been talking about, you have to weaken those factors of craving and grasping and becoming. And so that's what you're doing in the meditation too, as you're developing those insight knowledges, especially with the knowledge of dispassion and the desire for deliverance. Then that dovetails, quite, well with the, weakening the links of craving, grasping, and becoming, because it's craving, grasping, and becoming which keeps the mind, keep in the web of suffering and cause and effect. So yes, those insight knowledges especially, they work on that. So the knowledge of dispassion and desire for the deliverance, those dovetail quite nicely with those links of, weakening, craving, grasping, and becoming. So, and then of course, but it comes from, the insight knowledges come from the insight, from the meditation, not just the intellectual thing. If you're just thinking about the links of dependent origination from an intellectual point of view, that may not be enough to get the insight into the, the inner impermanence and anicca, dukkha, and anatta from the deep inner understanding of seeing the mind itself. Next question. Some places the 16 insight knowledges are described. What is the difference between the... That's a good question. And there's the 16 stages of insight. I've gone over those in the past as well, but it's called the 16 purifications, actually. And the seventh one of those 16 is actually 8 of these insight knowledges. So 8 of those, the first 7 of the stages of purification, basically they're purification of sila, purification of mind, purification of view, purification by overcoming doubt, purification of what is the path and not the path. And then number 6, the purification of knowledge and vision of the way. So that is where the 8 insight knowledges begin, with the number 6 of the 16 stages. Number 6 is the first insight knowledge, and then it goes on to 8. So 8 and 16 is 14. And then there's what is called change of lineage and conformity knowledge and change of lineage, which is actually then the purification by knowledge and vision. So the way is the 8 insight knowledges. Purification by knowledge and vision of the way is the 8 insight knowledges, followed by conformity knowledge and change of lineage, which is the actual experience of entering the stream and the other 3 stages of enlightenment. So it's, it can be a little bit complicated, but basically the 16 insight knowledges talk about these purifications, the ones that I've mentioned. And anyway, you can do further reading on it if you like. But that's what it basically is. Oh, okay. Maybe in that one answer to Michael, when he was talking about the 12 links of transcendental dependent arising, I didn't know. Yeah, you were talking about a different set. I think I lost my Zoom. Anyway, I have to get my notes to that transcendental dependent arising is a different formulation. And I don't have my notes on that with me right now. I don't have them exactly memorized, but this, the comment of Vimutti Magga, Visuddhimagga, and Abhidhamma seems to have different number insight knowledges, sometimes without context. Yes, that could be true, and that's why sometimes people get confused. They read different books that, and then if you read Mahayana, then they have their own version of different insight knowledges and the process and so on. So, but the one that I'm basically following is the one that is from the Visuddhimagga, is the most, to me anyway, from my own reading and experience, the clearest one and the more systematic one, and which accords also with the suttas, because the Buddha mentions those in the suttas too, most of them. Any other questions come to mind? As I mentioned before, next week we're not going to be having this Zoom program on Wednesday because our retreat is starting, and I'm going to be, offering some portions of our retreat on Zoom, similar to probably what I had done during the Thanksgiving retreat, perhaps the Dhamma talks in the afternoon, because there's a lot of people living over in Europe and so on who haven't been able to listen to these evening programs because the time is so different for them. It's in the middle of the night, like 7 o'clock here is midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning in Europe and other places. So that's why the Dhamma talks at 1 o'clock, and actually during the retreat it may be later. Anyway, I'm going to send that information out this next week before the retreat starts about the timing of that. although some of you, have sent me an email saying that you wanted to be on that, you wanted to participate in some of those Zoom programs, and also the New Year's Eve program. But I mentioned something about those in the next mailing I send out. Okay, so if no one has any more questions, then let's take a short break, and then come back and do our yoga stretches and then the meditation. Okay? Okay, friends, so just get comfortable in your meditation posture. Just align your spine and head in a straight line. Straighten the spine upwards. To establish that, feel the natural inward curve of the lower lumbar vertebrae. Just gently close your eyes. Just feel the eyes and the socket. And feel the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Begin from that point on the eyes. Try to feel the outline of the body. Try to tune back into those life force vibrations, feeling during the yoga exercise. Just feel the general sense of the head on top, the arms at the sides, buttocks and feet pressing the floor. Let's try to hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. And then begin some deep, slow breathing again, as we did in the yoga. Breathing in, hold the air in for 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, and slowly breathe out. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that. I'm going to chant the Namo Buddhaya 1 round. So while you're doing that deep, slow breathing, just relaxing the body and mind in the present moment. Namo Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Just keep your attention on the breathing. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel it. You turn up the power of the mental microscope. Tune in to the rising and falling of the breathing process, the expanding and contracting of the breathing. Try to notice the 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath, the brief pause. Contracting out breath, the brief pause. Expanding in breath arises and vanishing. Contracting out breath arises and vanishing. Keep that arising and vanishing, beginning and ending of each breath in the mind's eye. There in the center of the body. Then on your own, try to count your breaths from 1 to 10 by yourself. See if you can count 10 breaths without the mind getting lost in thoughts. You get lost from the counting. Haven't been lost in thoughts. Start again your counting at 1. If you've been able to count your breaths from 1 to 10 without getting lost, let go of the counting. Just keep remembering, noting the in and out breaths, continuing observing the impermanence of each in breath and each out breath. Feeling the pause in between the breath. Make these brief notes to help stay focused. In, sitting, out, out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Keep turning up the power of the mental microscope. Even within one in-breath, you might notice several different sensations arise and vanish. With each out-breath, notice several sensations arising and vanishing in quick succession. Even while observing the breathing, you can notice other sensations coming and going in the background, other body sensations, sounds in your room. Being alert for thoughts moving through the back of the mind. opening up to that flow of impermanent. Turning up the power of the mental microscope to notice more subtler sensations, sounds, thoughts, arising and vanishing, coming and going. Especially be alert for how quickly certain sensations arise and vanish. The mind becomes dull or too many thoughts. Come back and do some deep, slow breathing. Help keep the mind grounded in the body. Stay awake, alert, breath by breath, moment by moment. Opening up to the flow of impermanence. So many different sensations coming and going. Thoughts, urges, ideas coming and going. Emotions, other mental activity. Just notice the sense of the thought of I, me, or mine in the mind. Applying your insights to all these five aggregates are just impermanent, coming and going under the power of their accumulated karma, are not me, mine, or myself. Just contemplate, understand the conditioning of the mind, all of its habits. In, sitting, out, out, sitting. So many sensations coming and going, sounds coming and going, pleasure and pain come and go. Liking, disliking comes and goes. So many disjointed thoughts coming and going. The flow of impermanence. This body and mind. It's cultivating the detached, onlooking awareness. This breathing body, mind with all of its thoughts, confusion, or insight. or sensations or thoughts are triggered off by the sound of that bell. Sabbi sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanabindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhya dukkha patta ca nidukkha bhaya patta ca nibbaya soka patta ca nisoka ontu sabbi pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to briefly last and then vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take a deep, slow breath and breathe in. Stretch your head back and pull the hands on your knees to arch your spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press your chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the head up level with the in-breath. Then relax on the out-breath. And if you like, I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times. Slowly do the chanting on a long out-breath. To feel those vibrations in your body and mind. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. Sadhu. Okay, friends, so this brings our evening meditation to an end. And as I mentioned, next Wednesday, we won't have a Wednesday evening Zoom program as normal, but keep in touch or read the next news mailing that I send out perhaps on Monday to find out the times when we will be giving some of the retreat during our year-end retreat, some of the Dhamma talks, the New Year's Eve meditation, if you want to join in and do some meditation on New Year's Eve. You want to stay up to 12 o'clock, may do some chanting. Okay, so be mindful during this holiday. I mentioned if you're going to be meeting relatives for Christmas dinner or any other times during this holidays, try to do your M&Ms every hour to maintain your mindfulness. Okay, so have a happy holidays. See you again. Mindfulness today keeps dukkha away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu,
Have
sadhu.
wonderful
Bhante,
days.
sadhu.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Happy New Year, Bhante.
It's not New Year yet. Tune in on New Year's Eve.
Thank you for your teachings, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Bhante. Everyone, Saranai.
Everyone, Sarana.
Coming soon.